Hello, my crafty friend, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's junk journal flip through video. I am so excited to share with you what I've been working on for the last week, especially because my absolute favorite color is blue. I adore this costume jewelry earring piece that I glued to the top right hand corner. It is just so opulent and so stunning. I found it thrifting a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of in my head to do an entire journal based on how luxurious and opulent and beautiful it looks to see different shades of blue with gold and with some faux diamonds in there. So yeah, this whole tall, skinny junk journal was inspired by this earring, this single earring. And I call this beauty of a book Once in a Blue Moon. It was made in August of 2023. And it just so happens that we have a blue moon this month. And so I've pinned a cute little charm to the tie closure, and it shows kind of the silhouette of a kitty walking across a branch with a blue moon in the background. And yeah, so basically this journal celebrates all things rare, opulent, and beautiful. So the front cover has this cool layer of pockets. I kind of pulled the little bits that are in the pockets out a little bit just to show that each of these strips of Indian sari trim is actually a little shallow pocket, and of course I've put things in each one. So the bottom has a pair of really cool looking yellow Sri Lankan train tickets, and they're just kind of fun to look at. They're kind of cardstock pieces, so you could make those into journaling tags or just keep them in a collage or just hoard them in your book the way I kind of do with fun ephemera pieces like that. I put a pack of this delicious vanilla mint rooibos tea. It's caffeine free, so perfect for journaling or for flipping through your journal anytime, day or night. I recommend putting just a little bit of your favorite sweetener in with it if you buy this book and drink this tea. Personally, I like it sweetened with just a little bit of maple syrup, but maybe that's the Canadian in me. In the green strip, I put a pair of purple Sri Lankan train tickets. And in the very top one, I put a vintage playing card. And don't you just love the little kitty? How pretty she is. What's funny is that I remember vividly having this exact deck of cards when I was a little kid. They must have been my mom's cards, and obviously they got lost, or well, maybe not obviously to you, but to me, they got lost over the years, and then I found a full deck of these thrifting, and I couldn't resist buying them to include in journal pieces. So yeah, while the really opulent multicolor or multi-shade of blue earring is glued down, the others are removable. And so this one here is a clip-on earring. It's really heavy, really pretty. It could also make a gorgeous journal closure in and of itself, but I just felt like this book kind of needed a couple more jewelry pops to complete the texture on the front. And then this one I'm not going to take off because it's always a little bit hard to put back on again, but it's a really cool vintage brooch. As stunning as the front cover is, my favorite part is the back cover with this gorgeous sort of a medallion from a sari piece. I bought this just to use as crafting fabric. It's a sari that's kind of this blue sheer net with gold trim. And it came with two of these to be made into sleeves that would match the sari. And so I decided to put one on this book here, and the other one I've kept in my craft supply hoard because I would like to put it in a journal for myself. It's just so pretty. So opening the book, it gets right into beautiful things. First, there is this picture of the goddess Saraswati. In Vedic tradition, she's the goddess of music, culture, wisdom, education, art, and literature. And so that's why she's holding a scripture book and a veena. She's holding strands of beautiful beads. And so it's believed that keeping a picture of Saraswati in a journal helps us to avoid writer's block or creative block. It helps the ideas flow. It helps us learn what we choose to learn. And so she's also one of my Ishta Devatas, one of my personal favorite of the gods and goddesses. So as you saw, I left her blank on the other side, so you can write your intention for the journal or your name, the date, whatever you wish. The inside cover I lined with this absolutely beautiful, highly textured fabric that my friend May sent me all the way from Saudi Arabia. And that's part of the reason I chose this sari trim for the closure, because it just brings out so nicely the golds in here. So I glued a little strip of sari trim to the bottom just to be a pocket. And I picked this one because the flowers in it match so beautifully with the flowers being sniffed by this waterhouse painting. In this waterhouse painting, not by the painting. The painting is not sniffing the flowers. The painting is of a woman sniffing the flowers. But yeah, this piece that kind of fuses a waterhouse painting with a William Morris print is part of, I think it's called Arabella, the Arabella kit by the Paper Cameo. I love her papers. They're probably my favorite printables on Etsy right now, and this is not a sponsored video. I'm not part of her design team, but I just love working with her patterns and her papers. So yeah, I printed this one half size so that it would fit as a little mini flip within the book. In that pocket, I tucked a page from a vintage book about typewriting. It's a really fun thing to include. Pardon the fluff in the top of the screen. That's my cat Oreo. Hey baby. She's coming to sit on my lap, so I'm just gonna let her do that. Would you settle down? Would you sit, please? Thank you. All right, so if you hear some purring or see her little tail flick into frame, you know why. But anyway, yeah, I love this book paper, this typing instruction book, just because it has so many different fonts in one page, and both the red and the black. There's something really aesthetically pleasing about it, I think. So that you can either keep for your paper hoard or add it to your collages. And this long skinny envelope is from the Paper Cameo's newest kit, or at least the newest one when I was in her shop. And it's the Divinity kit with all of this cool kind of French Rococo architectural flourishes. And I love this envelope in particular because of all the color. And then the central theme is this little angel baby painting a picture sitting at an easel. And as an artist myself and as a lover of all things art, I just thought that was such a cool medallion to put in the center of this envelope. So I folded it up, but I didn't glue it shut, and that way it can be unfolded and used as extra writing space. The print on the back is thin enough or transparent enough that it could be a great background for writing. But of course you could also glue this down if you want it to be a permanent envelope. And in that, I put this gorgeous Victorian lithograph of a lady. She looks almost like she could be a flamenco dancer. She's holding her fan. She has this beautiful Spanish looking layered skirt with black lace over red. These little red shoes with black bows. Just how gorgeous is she? I love the way she looks. It is an authentic Victorian piece that I salvaged from a Victorian scrapbook. So you see the wear and tear. Like, I did not ink this to make it look antique. That really, really is antique. And I was going to glue her down to a page like so or like so, but I thought maybe whoever buys this journal would rather make that creative decision for herself. So you can also use it for writing. Write a little letter on the back and just preserve it. So yeah, that's the first piece of antique ephemera in here, and more to come. So this was from another printable kit, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of the artist and the name of the kit right now, but it's all French chateaus. And I'll put the link to all the printable kits I used in the video description. But yeah, in the bottom corner, I stuck a vintage French stamp that shows kind of a fairy tale castle. I felt like the shades of blue and the pink in that roof, kind of a copper roof, just matched that paper so well that I had to use it. A print of some French Rococo kind of architectural flourish. This is a print from a French document from the 1600s that I bought from an Etsy shop. And again, I'm so bad with remembering names of shops today. I'm so sorry about that, but I did do a video when I got this paper opening the package, so if you're curious, you can find that. I folded it just off center so that the entire fleur-de-lis stamp would be visible. But I think it's cool that it says papier la feuille, which is saying paper the sheet. So it's kind of cool that us paper lovers have a French document and it's actually labeled the sheet of paper. So that's kind of fun. And I printed it on a really lovely handmade mulberry paper that has really sweet little indigo bits stuck into it and little tiny pressed flowers. So it gives a nice change of paper texture. This pretty peacock feather paper, kind of a graph paper. On the other side of that, I created a tuck spot, or kind of like a up belly band, using some cool vintage lace. And into that, sorry, I got a little bit of glue on this. Into that, I stuck a really cool postcard from a Russian church in San Francisco that I just thought was a really cool looking piece of vintage ephemera. It's from 1960, the 25th, I'm guessing that's October? Who knows? I'm sorry. If you can read Russian, I would love to know what that says. But it's a cool 1960s ephemera piece from San Francisco either way. And I felt like the really ornate altar setup kind of fit with the ornate themes within the rest of the book. So this is probably my favorite page. On using kind of a background of player piano roll, I created a trifold out of an art history textbook page. And so this is some modern, it's a modern remake of a French, really beautiful French ornate wallpaper. And so I stuck it there and here, and it just opens up to show this beautiful scene of kind of frolicking nymphs or angels. They're just so pretty. I love this scene. I love any scene that has springtime greenery and water, and you can see they're splashing around in this kind of a grotto. I just loved the feeling in this painting. And it's also kind of nice that it has a gloss finish because it was a color plate in a vintage art history textbook. And on the other side, I made a little tuck spot using one of the Paper Cameos prints. And into that, I put just a little bit of a border that I printed onto tracing paper. So that would look really cool added to a collage. This page, or both of these pages, I guess this double page spread, has pockets from that same printable kit, the Divinity kit. And into them I put these pieces of just a fun pink paper that I coffee dyed, and I added a little bit of gold acrylic paint to it to give it some shimmer. I actually added that gold acrylic when the coffee was still wet. So when I first poured the coffee over the paper in the stencil so that it would kind of spread out a little bit. And pardon the lighting today, there are sadly lots and lots of wildfires in Canada right now. So even though it's daylight while I'm filming this, it's a little bit dark and hazy looking outside. So this paper is a really thick, heavy cotton rag paper that I coffee dyed. And then on the other side, in just a little upper tuck, I stuck some pages from an antique book. They have a really cool texture. Again, all of these antique book pages kind of feel different and have different shades of yellow and beige. They're just so much fun to look at when they're layered. And I also stuck a vintage postcard. I found this and that San Francisco postcard both at the Fort Macleod Antique Store. It has just the neatest antiques. But yeah, I love this illustration. Look at these lamps in the background and the city and this, at the time, very lavish horse-drawn carriage. So this is some genuine wallpaper trim. Not antique, but certainly vintage. And it has a really beautiful pearlescent sheen to it. On the other side, I made a pocket by printing some of the Paper Cameo's Divinity kit onto tracing paper. And so it created kind of a sheer pocket. That angel is so beautiful, isn't she? And so into that pocket, I stuck just a little snippet of graph paper. And it could go in graph side up too, and then you get, actually I kind of like it better that way. That looks kind of neat with this angel layered over graph paper. I'll leave it this way. This is from a different printable kit, but also by the Paper Cameo. I think it's called Floral Ledgers. That's from her Divinity kit. These pages are from an architect's manual from 1912. It's super cool. It's in French, and it's giving you charts that tell the different measurements for architectural engineering. So pretty cool. And again, it's a fun texture of paper, so kind of neat to have that layered in here. More Rococo kind of crown molding stuff. More from that French Chateau printable kit. This is music paper from 1935, so almost antique now. On the other side, there's this really cool pocket shaped like an old French fan from the Paper Cameo. And into there, I stuck a trimming from an art history textbook that shows Chartres Cathedral. And it's just so cool how each pillar is entirely hand-carved and unique and different. There's kind of a blurred line between sculptural art and architecture, and you can especially see it in old cathedrals and old temples from around the world. This page is a page of ledger from the 1960s, and I made some little pockets or some little shelves using vintage lace and just stuck fun little odds and ends into them, like more of that 1935 music paper, some extras from the printable kit by the Paper Cameo, perfect little bits to use in your collages. That little flower, so cute. And then some vintage stamps of Queen Elizabeth in shades of pinks and blues to complement the journal. That bright blue in the middle is probably my favorite. I left the back blank just because it shows that it's 1964 and the writing is so beautiful. I created kind of a double tuck on this page using these parts of the printable. They were in the add-on kit. And then in them I put a sample of wallpaper from Sears catalog from 1928. So also almost antique. And it has really lovely silvering that just looks great when the light picks it up, or when it picks up the light. So here's a page from that typing book. Again, look at all the cool fonts. Just neat to see. There's some embroidered Indian sari trim. I love the illustration of the chair on this page. A page of embroidered flowers, which is why I picked this embroidered flower trim. It kind of matches that page in the book. This is a page from the 1901 Eaton's catalog. It's not an original catalog page, but it is kind of a newsprint texture, and it's from a reprint of this that was published in, I think, the late 1990s. The 90s or the early 2000s. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool that there's an illustrated chair here, so I found to kind of match it, this illustrated chair page from the catalog. I love this page in the Paper Cameos Divinity printable kit. And to bring out the yellow, I stuck a vintage style pendant. It may be new, it may be vintage, I'm not sure. It was a gift from one of my friends, and she had a bunch of cool pendants that she gave me and asked if I could use them in my art somehow. So it was made to be included in something like this, and I think it looks just so cool, especially because the filigree frame kind of matches the filigree details in the architectural structures here. And it's a natural gemstone. I believe this one is honey calcite. Really, really pretty. All the yellowy colored natural gemstones really beautifully empower the solar plexus chakra, which is our inner center of willpower, individuality, leadership skill, creative potential. So it's a really great gem to wear, especially if you're an artist or an aspiring artist, or you're looking to manifest great wealth. So I think in an opulent journal, why not have a gem for wealth manifestation? This beautiful little Chinese money envelope. Speaking of wealth manifestation, it is stuffed with some little goodies, so I guess I better flip it off the page. It contains, whoops, a folded up piece of paper. Easier to get that out off camera. So yeah, this piece of paper, it's not vintage that I know of, but it's a really cool piece of ephemera. It's a page from a book about calligraphy, so it shows you where to put the brush and where to turn up the brush stroke to get these traditional characters. And I just thought it was so gorgeous. I have no idea what it says, but I love to look at those kinds of things. Cool fonts, cool calligraphy, cool writing in other languages. There's just something magical about that stuff. Sorry, I have to remember to start doing these things on camera more. And then this pretty little angel, oops, is, sorry, I had to readjust my legs after Oreo got up. It's a scorecard for, I forget which game, bridge or cribbage or one of those two, crib. But I found that in a little thrift shop in Fort McLeod as well, and just had to include it. It's so cute. And the little pocket that it's in is so shallow that I've added this paper clip just to hold it in place a little bit more. And to the bottom of the paper clip, I stuck a piece of vintage jewelry that I found in a jewelry jar that has just this cool brass bit and some glass drops that are made to look like opal. So it's got a really pretty opalescent, sort of a blue sheen that I'm not sure whether the camera's picking it up well, but in person it looks so pretty. A vintage stamp showing some beautiful architecture. This is a page from a tourist book of the Palace of Versailles that I found thrifting, and it has just some gorgeous art in it. And I folded up the bottom to make into just like a little mini pocket, and in that I stuck a photograph of a chandelier hanging from a stained glass dome roof that my Auntie Lorraine actually took this photo. It's a genuine photograph printed in the 80s from a trip that she took to Europe. So it's not a photo of Versailles, but it certainly matches that kind of opulence. And there's a similar sort of domed stained glass window. Dome interior. Church of San Carlo alla, and I'm sorry, you'll have to see the rest of the name of that church in the back of the book. Okay, so on the other side of that page, I made a pocket and stuck a pretty page from an illustrated encyclopedia of North American wildflowers. And so this one is showing calla lilies and pink zephyr lilies. I'm sorry, maybe this wasn't the nature book. Maybe this was a book about lilies. I'm starting to get so many different flower books and art history books, it's hard to keep all of the book pages straight. Okay, I will replace this with another one because I've got quite a few of these. But in the pocket on the bottom, actually that's not so bad. I stuck a thrifted wine bottle label that I think has a really pretty crown on it with the ruby and the sapphires. So yeah, that goes in there. And I promise you, it was easier for me to get all the pages back in place off camera than on. One of my absolute favorite bits of sequined and embroidered sari trim. And that just flips up so you have this space either for writing or collaging or whatever you'd like to do. That brings us to the center of the signature. And I just stuck some beautifully embroidered net sari flowers over it. The gold to go with the gold, the flowers to go with the flowers. And while this is loose, you could put a little bit of glue here and a bit of glue here to turn it into 4 tuck spots. And I almost did that myself, but then I thought I don't want to put things in those pockets that will cover up this really beautiful paper by the Paper Cameo. So yeah, I've left it as it is, but if you choose to buy this book, that's one idea for what you can do with this. Where I sewed in the signature, I stuck a really fun glass bead, a little golden flower, and a little piece of a vintage necklace with just really cool, pretty glass beads. So that dangles out the bottom. And I'm not sure if I showed you this, but there's some really cool, drippy, fringy stuff coming out the bottom of this book. Okay, moving on. I'm trying not to make this an hour-long video. I made little tiny tuck spots on this other side of the art history text page. Stuck more of that vintage music note paper into the top piece, along with a really beautiful stamp And then in the bottom piece, I put a coupon for Nabob coffee, a really fun piece of American ephemera. I love the little Nabob genie, so cute. So it's a coupon for Nabob tea bags, and then a really pretty flying bird, a bird in flight that was part of the Paper Cameos printable kit. On the other side of the page, I stuck a print that I made of a beautiful vintage illustration. I absolutely adore this lady. This was a vintage postcard that I found in Fort McLeod, and I love the Chinese painted kind of room divider, sort of a chinoiserie architecture style. I love that she's holding a book and kind of gazing wistfully at the bowl of fish, the beautifully painted goldfish. There's just the sheerest of sheer kind of tablecloths there too. So yeah, that can flip down if you want to write on the back. It's backed with one of my Sears catalog wallpaper printables. And behind it, I stuck a really cool vintage Dutch book page. It's got yellowed with age. That's natural yellowing. I didn't coffee dye it. It really is as old as it looks. And another little piece of Sears wallpaper from 1928, the original vintage wallpaper. I thought that the painted decorations here look a lot like those in this printable kit. Like, you see that kind of silvery with that silvery. So yeah, really pretty. I also want to point out this woman's style. Like, look at the big flowy skirt. She definitely looks maybe flapper era. Doesn't seem to be wearing a corset. And the extra long chain with emeralds. Oh, I just love that. And her forehead band, everything about this image I think is just stunning. The other side of this beautiful printed page. The other side of the Versailles page. And another photo that my auntie took when she was in Europe. Just love all the molding and architectural details. This is a print that I made on cardstock of a Victorian scrapbook, little card of flowers in a basket. So I fussy cut it out and then used it as a tuck spot for another little snippet from that same book about Versailles. This is really cool. This is an illustration of the Paris Salon in 1844. And the Salon was where all the Parisian artists would come together in a group exhibit to display their greatest work they made of that year. And I don't know if this was kind of like a three-dimensional sculptural painting, or if the artist who did this little illustration is trying to show that it's like the picture pops off the page. But whatever it is, it's pretty cool to look at. The other side of that Eaton's catalog page. Love that castle illustration. Put a little bit of sweet trim there that kind of matches the colors. The other side of this typing book page, little sari trim tab on the side. The other side of that Rococo trim. I made a tuck spot out of these Queen Elizabeth stamps. And into it I tucked this really pretty illustration from an art history textbook. And this is actually a floating pocket. So I had just stuck it to this page using a paper clip. So this is the other side of that 1960s ledger. This is kind of a floating pocket made out of more of that vintage music paper. And yeah, so in the front tuck spot, I put this, and in the main part of the pocket, I stuck a folded over page out of a 1960s craft book. And I considered ripping this off and gluing it down because there's non-vegetarian recipes here, which personally I would never include in my own junk journals. So as a vegan, if I were to keep this book, I would simply rip along this edge here and then maybe back this on some wallpaper or just glue it down to another page and use it like this, because, you know, the ad for reading glasses that show make small type look big, and the way they illustrated what they were selling, I think there's an art to vintage advertisements. The blender on $69.90 was quite a high price for kitchen gadgets back in the 1960s. So yeah, that's just a fun little floating pocket that I included here. But yeah, this is where this becomes my favorite page. When it flips over, you see samples of some of my all-time favorite embroidered sari trims. And they are just pinned to the page using sewing pins. And that means they can be glued down as tabs or made into textile collage pieces or glued as ornaments or just collected here as they are. But yeah, I felt like sharing some of my favorites with whoever buys this book. And they're all so different and just so beautiful. On the other side of this, I used one of the coolest shaped tuck spots from that printable kit. And inside it, I put a genuine Victorian ad card that shows a little girl and her grandmother. Grandmother seems to be mending some clothing. And it says, "Grandma, how lovely this hop yeast smells." So I think hop yeast is for making beer, but correct me if I'm wrong, it could also be for baking. But yeah, Warner's Safe Yeast, pure and wholesome, the best known. Maybe it's like nutritional yeast. And I put that stuff on everything. But anyway, I think it's cute. There's a cure for constipation on the back, but that's genuine from the late 1800s. And I just thought the picture of the little girl with her grandmother was so cute. So on the other side of this music page, I made a little frame by fussy cutting out an old illustration of some cabinets. And then into that, I put a snippet of a painting. I think this is a Renoir painting, but beautifully, it kind of zooms in on this couple. They sure look like they're in love, dancing. But yeah, that could be pulled out and you could put any picture you want behind that little frame. Some really cool sort of daisy chain bordering this flip out. I love all these architectural details in this printable kit. So pretty. The other sides of these 1912 French engineer's manual. That little cherub on this painted ledger, floral ledger page is so cute. So yeah, in this belly band made of sari trim, I made one of the coolest little things, I think. So my friend May from Saudi Arabia had sent me this really beautiful pad of paper for doing Arabic calligraphy. And she demonstrated how she writes her name and how to write Sarah. And what's cool about these pages is that they're all perforated, so they come out pretty easily. And yeah, so I pulled out one of those pages and then I coffee dyed it using a stencil of a mandala. So it has this really pretty, kind of a rich pattern to it. And then I folded it like this so that the two ends of that gold and turquoise, just my favorite color combination, gold and turquoise, gold and blue, like these. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun, you could use this to glue down pictures, kind of like an accordion book if you wanted, or just keep it how it is for writing. But I thought that looked pretty sweet tucked into there. And so here's another vintage cabinet that I turned into a pocket. So these little doors open, and inside there's a little bluebird of happiness, and it's on a little print from a Victorian scrapbook piece. I just kind of reprinted it on cardstock. And just for fun, this looks into temple pillars from ancient Egypt. There's a lot of kind of opulent old European imagery in this book, and one thing that a lot of European Renaissance era or Age of Enlightenment era, even into the Victorian era, there was a fascination for curiosities and collectibles and things that show worldliness and travel. And so a cabinet like this one, if it were to be used as a cabinet of curiosities, it's very likely that there would be something in it to represent Egypt. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun nod to that tradition. And the whole thing is also a little pocket. And so in that I put some fussy cut mini vases with pretty flowers that were also in a Victorian scrapbook, backed with just the plainest of the Sears wallpaper printables from my own Etsy shop. One of these weeks, I'm going to take all of my favorite Victorian ephemera, like these, like that flower basket, and just take them to get them scanned so I can offer a kit in my shop so that you can print your own version of these things on some cardstock. It's one of my favorite things to include in a junk journal. And I especially love kind of the 3D effect that I'm seeing by layering these two over each other, which I've never actually done before. This is the first time I've used them together. Anyway, this page is trimmed with this really pretty glass bead kind of trim. They might not look like much on camera, but in person they look like iridescent water bubbles. So these are little tuck spots made from the wallpaper I've got here on the side of the camera. So yeah, I just kind of fussy cut the design out from this wallpaper and then folded it over with a dab of glue here to make this into two pockets. But how cool would it look with that negative space filled up with writing? So anyway, into those tuck spots I included a couple more genuine Victorian ephemera pieces. This one says awarded, whoops, jumper. Awarded for punctuality, industry, and good conduct. So clearly that was given to a student by a teacher for being a well-behaved child. And then this little boy giving a bouquet of flowers to maybe his little sister, that cute little girl in a blue dress, also came out of a Victorian scrapbook. And it would just look adorable glued down truly anywhere. This would make a great little addition to any collage piece. But yeah, I left these loose in here so that whoever gets the book can choose to use them however they want. The other side of the player piano roll, and I paper clipped onto it just to keep it from rolling onto itself. I paper clipped on a little collection of French envelope pieces that show some vintage stamps. This one is probably my favorite because the cancellation stamp has a castle. But yeah, really cool. Each one's different. They would also look really great used in a collage. This beautiful embroidered sari trim with kind of a scalloped sequin edge. The pink and the blue to go with the pink and the blue ornaments on that page. The other side of this print of that old French document. This pretty page folds over, I've used some vintage ribbon lace as a trim there and created a little tuck spot using more of that vintage music paper, and it folds down to hold in these bridge scorecards that are vintage. I don't know what year they are vintage from, but they're from Victoria, BC, one for Belfast Linen Shop, the other for diamonds, watches, jewelry, clocks, a watchmaker jeweler. The texture of the paper is just so cool. Actually, in a video, I think maybe last week or the week before, the Craft With Me video, at the end of that video, I invited anybody who watched it to the very end to send me a private message so I could send them a couple of the napkins that I used in that video. I included one of these pieces of paper with each of those, so to kind of share some of the vintage antique shop goodness. And like I said, there's no date, so I'm not sure when it's from, but the phone number is only 4 digits, so that's got to be pretty old. And then in the little hidden tuck spot there, I put some really pretty playing cards that have this marbled edge. So 2 of them that are pink with blue and 2 that are blue with pink. So you're getting a Jack, a 9, ooh, the King and the Queen of Spades. So that's pretty cool, considering I pulled them randomly. The King of Spades with the pink border, the Queen of Spades with the blue border. So that's kind of fun. And then the other bits of this 1968 planner book, the other side of that page. And that brings us to the very back of the book, where I made a pocket out of this pretty bouquet of flowers sari trim and stuck the final piece in the book, which is a Christmas card from the Victorian era. It's embossed, it's beautiful, and even though the message is a Christmassy message, I feel like a beautiful 3-dimensional rose can definitely be used any time of year. Now, since the book was made in the month of the blue moon, I've decided as a special little gift with purchase to include a set of these moon phase mini sticky notes. And so I'm putting that also right here in this pocket. And for those of you who watch to the very end, I'm going to do a little oracle reading using this moon deck. Interesting how 3 of them were turned the other way. So I'm just going to shuffle all of those in. So what is the message for everyone who's watched to this point, for whoever chooses to buy this book, and for me? What's the message for all of us? I'll go with 3 cards. Okay, so 3 cool messages. First, your commitment is being tested, first quarter moon. Second, the answers you need are coming, full moon in Gemini. And third, that was reversed, confidence is your key to success, new moon in Leo. So the reversed cards refer to aspects of life that we need to work on more deeply, to focus on. So if confidence is something that we need to manifest more of to build up for our success, for that, I recommend wearing yellow, orange, and golden colored metals and gemstones. So yellow gold, citrine, honey calcite, like the pendant in this very book, sunstone, tiger's eye, anything in that gold to orange color spectrum, spessartine garnet. And then along with that, trust your intuition, since the answers we need are coming to us. And if life feels extra hard for you lately, if it's difficult to get into the creative flow, or if you're having trouble manifesting the outcome that you want in what you're working towards, don't give up and don't lose hope. Now is the time to practice manifestational positive thinking. Whenever our commitment is being tested, it's not like existence is trying to push us to quit. Existence is pushing us to get even more sincere in our commitment, work a little bit harder, do what needs to be done, double down in our efforts. So don't give up. Your commitment might be getting tested, but you will certainly be rewarded for passing that test. So these oracle cards are also a gift to whoever buys this pretty book. So yeah, I hope you loved Once in the Blue Moon. I'm even seeing lunar symbology in this mandala now. But yeah, it's not only because it was made during the blue moon time, but also because it's only once in the blue moon that we find really cool vintage and antique and fun pieces of old jewelry and paper like that when we go thrifting and when we go antiquing. And so I've included in this book a lot of those really exciting thrift store and antique shop finds, like the old ledger and the old music papers and just gorgeous stuff. And also to whoever buys the book, as a gift with purchase, this really special Renaissance looking ring. It's a silver color background with a sapphire colored gem in the center, lots of other pretty little mini sapphire colored fake crystal pieces. A couple of them have fallen out, but that kind of adds to its charm. It's really heavy. I found it at a local antique store, and I just love how the gilding on the bezel setting around that faux sapphire make it look like it's a crown on the ring. So yeah, I'll just tie that into the bow closure, so whoever buys it will have a really pretty ring to go with their book. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this flip through. I hope it brings you some fun crafty ideas. It's available for sale in my Etsy shop as of the time that I publish it, but if you follow that link and you don't see the book, it just means that it's already sold. So my apologies for the disappointment if that's the case. But fear not, I'm always working on new projects. However, this is the only one that will feature that gorgeous earring. So if you're as in love with it as I am, don't wait. It's also going to be the only one to feature this mandala because I'm keeping the other piece of this and I'm keeping the other earring of that. Anyway, thanks again for watching. So much love to you. Happy crafting, happy journaling. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.